Hi, this is Skoldox. I'm here to give a tutorial on how to create and make pixel art. This is a kind of an unusual tutorial because I'm kind of be going over just the general thought and process of how I generally go with pixel art. Um, it's not going to be a comprehensive tutorial on how to create art, but if you're looking to start the media, if you've never used one of these art programs before, this will generally get you going in the direction of making pixel art. Um, there's just a lot of things that I just can't teach, and this hopefully will get you up and going, and some of the things that I do might be useful to you. And if you already are making art or pixel art, this might be insightful for those. The program that I'm going to be using is called Aesprite. And before I get into it, I just want to go quickly over what pixel art is. It is a style that used to be really essential for old computers because showing things on a computer was actually pretty, it was very intense on older machines. And so, like, really old computers, like, Pac-Man over here, this is the best that that computer could render. This was considered top of the line, having colors and stuff. But one thing I want to point out is that pixel art, the smallest unit are these pixels, these little points of data. And what that is that it's a piece of data that the computer then throws up onto a screen. Now, a screen like this probably has a couple thousand. This one has even more depth and colors, and so that's a lot more things that it has to take care of, until eventually you get beautiful works of art that's like this. Your screen right now probably can render millions of pixels, which is actually kind of amazing in a lot of ways, that it has the visual clarity to uh, render basically real life images onto your screen. And so, kind of going back and looking how it used to be is really interesting to me, just because, these little dots, when from afar, look like a clear, crisp image, but really it's just little blocks of color. And this is what we're going to be creating. Now, I want to kind of point out here is that, like, a scene like this is a lot of effort. The artists back then were no different than any other artists. They just had a strict limitation that prevented them from rendering things at full details. There was also a practical reason. This is how video games were shown, and they had to take some shortcuts to make sure that the game, worked. So that's generally what pixel art is. This is my portfolio of art right here. This is the style that I've been kind of aiming for recently. And I just want to point out is that usually when I make my pixel art is that, I try to get in there and actually poke the individual pixels, but this is a little bit different than what's up here because really you can make art any way you want. And I choose to kind of use it as a more illustrated style. This one's probably the last one that I made right now. And so, if this seems like something that you would like to learn, well, congratulations, this is the tutorial for you. So I'm going to be making this dragon head that I sketched out yesterday. And it's really important at this point to have an idea of what you want to create. And so I doodle, and I actually did this in a this is like about the size that I drew it in. And it's just good to use whatever medium you have. If you have pen and paper and you want to take a screenshot of it, it's fine. The doodling process can be anything. The thing that I want to emphasize here, that is when you start drawing the thing that you want to create, you want to keep your image clean. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be clean. And what I mean by that is that I need to be able to see where the dark lines are and where the light spaces are, because when we make pixel art, we're actually going to be shrinking down our image to fit on a very constrained grid. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is that you need to have a picture or something you want to create. Now you can draw directly onto the program that if you want. That is perfectly fine. I used a drawing program myself to get to that point. So the next thing that we're going to do is that you need to have an art program. Now there's a lot to choose from, but I personally use Aesprite. Aesprite is a program designed specifically for sprite art. Now this program, I don't know how many platforms it supports. I'm assuming it works on Apple and Linux. This one just kind of cuts out a lot of the unnecessary features and just focuses on it. Now this program, when I last checked, was $15 USD. Fairly reasonable for an art program, and for what I'm doing with it, honestly, a lot of sprite artists swear by it. And so I have already loaded in this image, and I wanted to talk about, I'm going to kind of touch on how this program works. On the left, you got your color palette. Now, what's really nice about the color palette is that you can, and there's these buttons right here. This one locks it up so that, you can't make changes to it. This one allows you to sort your colors. So if I want to sort it by a gradient, or let's do brightness, you can reorganize your colors. And this is why I really like about Aesprite, is that it has all these features that are specifically to make this process a lot easier to work in sprite art. So anyways, you got all these features. You can even make it ascending and descending and all that. If you want, you can even pop this open, and this will give you a variety of colors. But let's say you want to load in your own color palette. Well, what's really neat about Aesprite is that you can actually pick a picture, you open it up, and it will generate the colors from that picture. A really useful thing if you're trying to figure out what colors another person has used. You can also load a default, which you can set. So you say palette as preset or as default. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load in a palette. I kind of want to use my own palette that I've created, and I got even a folder. These are a couple that I've already saved. I actually have two computers, so I got multiple. Anyways, these are the colors that I usually use for my character over here. So now one thing I want to make sure that you understand, that when I say that you can literally use any drawing that you have, I really mean it. This drawing is actually really, really big, and you can still use this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up a new layer here. I hit Control N. Now, if you want to make there's buttons that you can use, but I use Shift N. Shift N is what allows you to create new layers, like so. And if you want to create new layers without knowing, you can always right-click down here. You can enter a new layer. You can make a group of layers, which is like a little folder that kind of puts everything together. You can delete layers, background, and stuff. So layers, just like if you can think of it as like multiple sheets of paper stacked on top of each other. One good habit to get into is just making sure to name your layers. So I'm just going to call this the sketch. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of color this in just so that I can see it better. So I hit Shift N. I'm going to change its properties, which is Shift P. I don't really remember the shortcut for that. You don't really need to, because you can just double click it. We're going to select lighten. Let's go with an overlay color. You don't have to worry about naming it, because we're going to be applying it to it. And I usually like to use either, let's go with red. Red's a really strong color. And I'm going to just turn off the visibility. This is the the visibility button. And over here, I'm just going to use the paint bucket tool. It is the letter G. So you fill that in, you turn that back on. That is not what I wanted. So let's, I'm going to have to kind of look for, how about lighten? Yeah, so we'll use the lighten tool. Lighten, what it does is it brings the pixels from the dark to a lighter color. Literally lighten. And so we got our two colors here. I'm gonna select them both by clicking and dragging, or you can click on one, hold shift, and then click another. We're gonna right click and hit flatten. And this will flatten the image, and it looks like we lost our name, so let's just call it sketch. Okay. Another thing you want to do here is the opacity is what, basically how clear is this layer going to be? And I don't want this to actually be all that clear, so I'm actually going to drop it down to a reasonable number. Usually about 100 is usually where I want to be. And you can see that the background, this checkerboard ground background, is saying, hey, there's literally nothing here. And you can even see that checkerboard pattern going through the lines of my drawing. That means that I can see through it. Now, I don't really want to see the checkerboard pattern, so I'm going to make a new layer, shift in. I'm going to actually drag this underneath the sketch. I'm going to turn off the visibility. Now, the reason why I'm turning off the visibility is that when you're working with layers, there's multiple settings that allow you to work with different layers. And if you have them all on and you have the tool activated to work with the entire canvas, it will start reading the pixels from other images. So if you just want to like focus solely on an image, you can turn off the visibility. Now, there's a special trick that I want to kind of hit, is that if you have multiple layers, turning them all off just so that you can work on one layer is kind of tedious. Now, you can like click and hold and you can turn them all on, but if you have like 50 layers, it's kind of annoying. You can hold Alt and then press the I button, and whatever I that you selected is the only layer that's going to be active. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to actually fill this in with white. And make sure to be on the layer that can actually be filled in. Okay, we're going to rename this to background, because it is the background. And we want to turn back on our sketch. Now these extra layers that I put in, we can still use them. In fact, I'm just going to kind of move them up. Just be aware that you have multiple layers. Now, this lock tool right here will prevent you from accidentally drawing on that layer. This is really useful because sometimes when you're drawing, you might forget that you're drawing on a specific layer, and you can't always undo from the previous state. And nor do you really want to. Maybe you did something really well and you don't want to undo it. So prevention is a key thing that you want to do here. You want to make sure that you have the layers that you're not working with locked, or at least be paying attention to what's going on here. Something I should also mention, that this is not the normal visual layout of Aesprite. I forgot to mention that this is a custom theme that I downloaded. You can install themes through preferences. Well, maybe not preferences. Yeah, there's themes. And so I have the Wild Night Blue theme. This is what it usually looks like. Oh wait, it's not going to apply immediately. But what it usually looks like is kind of a more gray, but it is identical to what it was I have here. I just prefer night mode if I can always get it, because it's better on the eyes. Anyways, back to our sketch here. So we made this transparent, which means we can start working on this. I'm actually going to delete this layer just so that I'm not having just two random layers. This one is going to be our actual line layer. Okay, so now we have the three. Now, one thing I want to make sure you understand is that you have your zoom level right here. This is 100. This is what working at a zoom level 100 is really important, because this is what you're going to see usually when you're sharing the images. And so this is not really pixel art. This is still an illustration that I've drawn, and it is extremely detailed. Like, look at how many pixels are in here. We're talking about, like, yeah, well, let's take a look at the canvas size. 700 by 700 pixels. This is just shy of like 70,000 pixels, or no, 700. Oh, let me do the math real quick, because I really want to make sure I get this right. 700 by 700 is 490,000 pixels. That is half a million pixels right here. That's too much. When you're working with pixel art, you really are going to be going in, and you're going to be poking. We're zooming in. This is at 800% zoom, but this is just how it works. And if you... Oh, I need to pull it out. Oh, I should mention right here, how I'm turning this layer is by hitting the tab button. This is so that I have more screen space. So when I'm working with pixel art, you're going to have to get in, and you press B, and, working this close, look how, I can't even see anything because I'm this close. Let me see if there is a way to turn on a preview here. Layer, grid, pixels, grid, tile mode. Yeah, okay, so we got a preview. Let's see if I can zoom out. I can't zoom out on this, can I? No, I can. I just need to use my mouse. I'm using the middle mouse wheel. Alright, so we're actually going to keep that up there. So I'm like somewhere... Man, I'm like over here. Okay? So this is really big, and this is pixel art, and the preview here, this is just way too much detail for me to work with. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to change the sprite size, not canvas size, sprite size. And it's going to ask us, how big do we want it? So usually what I want to have is a, for a picture like this, I think what I want is a 150 pixels. This is significantly smaller. Now the method, there's 3 methods. We got nearest neighbor, bilinear, and rot sprite. The 2 that I am most interested in is nearest neighbor and bilinear. Now, nearest neighbor is really good if you're trying to size sprite art bigger, because what it's going to do is it's going to use the existing colors and fill in the extra detail that you gain from the sprite there. It's really nice. It's pretty clean. When using nearest neighbor, you want to make sure you're using multiples of 2. Basically, you double the size or you quadruple the size. It works best when you're not trying to change that square law, because it will preserve your image in its fullest clarity. You probably won't be using this one. What you need is bilinear. Bilinear I use because when you shrink it down, it's going to preserve as much of the visual clarity, and I will show you what I mean. So I shrunk it down. You can still kind of see it. It's at 100% right now, but the image still has preserved many of the pixels. And this is the first thing that I want to talk about when working with sprite art, is that you can do it in any art program, but it might be more difficult because those art programs are designed to look really nice and not as blocky as sprite art. All that sprite art I was showing before, you can actually zoom in and you can see the individual squares. Technically, you can do that with any image that you see on the internet, but sprite art kind of like leans into it because this is the actual size that most sprite artists are working in. Anyways, it might be a little hard to see, so let me go ahead and turn up the opacity here. You might notice here that there is some pixels that are not the same color, and to the computer, when you have any pixel that has slightly different numbers, it is considered a different color. You can have something that looks like pure white like this, and something that's like slightly white. I'm going to go ahead and give this example. Oh, I need a... right here. I don't know if you can even see this. I mean, you probably might. My screen is really hard to see. So these two are technically white, and if you try to like color it in, oh look, it's going to do this. And sometimes, let me see if I can like give a better example. So I'm gonna just like slightly nudge this. There, I am painting a white here. And if I try to fill it in now, it's still here. In fact, that's what's going to happen here is if I try to like work with this, there's all these other weird colors. And that's because when you're drawing with the anti-aliasing, it adds in these extra colors in here to make it feel more smooth. It looks nicer from a distance and is really the bane. So when you're working with sprite art, you want to make sure your tool does not have anti-aliasing. So when I draw this line right here, you notice how there is no other colors here, and I want this. This is something that I need. Aesprite is really great because I can draw, like, I can just freehand it, which this is okay, or I can press, I poke somewhere, hold shift, and it will give me this nice clean line. And the reason why I want this, I'm just going to go ahead and make a line like this, and then I'm going to make a line like this. Maybe, you know, I'll do that. So one of the things that you want to be careful of when you're making sprite art is that when you're making lines, you want this nice, crisp line. You don't want any of like edges connecting the two. Over here, we have some interesting points like here, 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 here. And these are called jaggies, the ones that I'm highlighting in red. What jaggies are is just a kind of a fatter line, and it does not look as clean. So when you're making pixel art, you want to be careful of that, and you want to, you know, this can be very tedious, like individual cleaning it, but that's kind of what you need to do. But you notice how much nicer this line looks. You might want to even just kind of adjust the line as necessary, just to kind of do it. But by creating this, you kind of create this nice, kind of pleasing line. And this principle applies everywhere, and I'm going to talk about it. And I know that I'm not really saying what I'm doing, because like even though there's buttons on the right to do these functions, there's some things that, like how I made this line is I'm holding shift, and I'm able to place a line wherever I want, and then I poke again. Pressing G will fill in colors for me, and yeah, sorry, I'm not usually the one who makes tutorials on this. Anyways, I just want to point out that when you're working with this, the reason we use bilinear so we can preserve the details. You can't just go and color this in because there's colors here that I don't want. And I'm going to fix my preview here just so that you can see what I'm doing at all times. And I'll make sure to not cover this panel on the right so that you can do it. Oh yeah, one more tool that's really useful is the color pickup tool, is Alt. I'm holding Alt, it's over here. So we got all of it. We're going to go ahead and we're going to start tracing this project. And this is why it doesn't matter what this looks like, we're going to basically color over it. Now I use a drawing tablet. You can do this with a mouse. It might be easier with a mouse for some people. So what we do is we pick up a color. We're going to use a dark one. In fact, I'm just going to use black. And we simply just, I'm going to look for a place. This might still be too light for me. Darken it up a bit. All right. So make sure I'm the right layer. I'm turning off the layer. And then I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to poke somewhere, hold line, and I'm going to actually just poke it in, and you want to go kind of quick. And the reason why I'm choosing to use straight lines is that I can always make it look curved by just like looking for some short trajectory. Now, if I make this line right here, it's going to make this pixel really fat, so I can just hit Control. No, I undo by pressing Control Z. Holding Control Shift Z will allow you to redo it or put it back. I'm just going to erase that line. I'm going to poke right here, and then I'm going to hold Shift and just kind of go back down here. And really just aim for anywhere that I want my line to be. Now you can individually like poke it if you feel more comfortable that way. I'm just holding Shift and I'm letting the tool make my line. And as we get further in, I will talk about other tools that will be really helpful. To drawing. And so get this all in. Now the lines don't have to be perfect. In fact, I'm kind of leaving it a little messy because one, you don't have to you can always fix things. I think pixel art is incredibly forgiving when it comes to making adjustments that you might need. And because we're working at such a small scale, I got a whole bunch of scales here. There's not really anything you can mess up, not even the lines. And that's something that I find really appealing about pixel art, is that you don't have to be perfect. In fact, you don't even have to draw it like this. I just prefer to have my lines where I want them. What I'm doing to zoom in and out is I'm holding Z, and I can zoom in, I can zoom out by moving the canvas. So you can click and hold. Pressing B for my brush. Put that up there. I'm just kind of aiming for general details. So I might actually, instead of having it like that, I might just want the horn to be completely flushed like that. This is something that you can easily spend a lot of time. Now, even though I don't like having the pattern here, it'll look fine from a distance. Like you zoom out, it looks okay. You don't have to worry too much about the patterns. Just kind of like draw it. And something that's kind of like unique to my style is that I'm okay with not exactly making perfect lines and shapes. Now, it is nice to have, you know, lines and shapes that you want, but if it's a little messy, I think it's going to be okay, and that's why I'm saying, you know, art doesn't have to be perfect. Now, I did not draw this very well. Kind of looks weird. I have a weird horn. You know what? It's okay. That'll be fine. And then there's just one more horn back here, or I guess spike. I like my spiky little boy. We're gonna go ahead and add his eyebrow spikes. And just kind of, you know, poke it in. So, one of the reasons why I really loved getting into pixel art is that, you know, that gross, like, colors I was talking about, the anti-aliasing, I absolutely hate that, and it causes so much problems when trying to color in art in another program. It's always there, and just easier when you don't have to worry about it, I personally think. They have settings in other programs that you'll in those programs you can adjust that setting. You can even turn it off in some cases because some brushes just look better when you don't have the aliasing going on. Looks like I have one more spike right here. You know, I'm not entirely sure what this spike is. Oh, did I like draw like an extra spike somewhere? Hang on, I need to like fix this up because apparently I don't know how to draw. Yeah, I want that like kind of big spike right there. And I'm just gonna give up on the side spikes of it. It's already spiky enough. So I always have to evaluate what I'm doing. Make sure that, you know, it's what I want. And then I do want my nose. Put that in there. And of course, the eye is fairly important. His nice sunken eye. And we'll kind of zoom in and we'll fix this up. Alright. And we'll go ahead and put in his eye slit. Okay, I also know that he has a really good smile. And we'll put in the teeth. His goofy fangs. You know, you just adjust them as you need them. So all this other detail that I put in here, the scales, I actually want to go in with a different color. But I want to make sure that I got all the major the shape figured out. And it looks like his ear is supposed to be right there. Okay. So we'll pull up our thing. I hit tab again. Turn off sketch. Okay, so I am missing some important lines. I definitely need his neckline right there. Let's go ahead and just kind of make it nice and even. I personally want his plate thing more pronounced. But I've added a whole bunch of details because part of what I want to do is I actually want to draw in the scales, and I just want to know where they're at because I'm actually going to go over how to shade and highlight things. This, even though I'm not going to go how I doodled this, I still want to you know, go over how I render this. So once you got your general colors, or not colors, lines in, I'll go ahead and fix this up. See? Nice and derpy looking. I might want to fix his nose up real quick. like that. It'll look better as we work on it. Just kind of make sure that the lines are what we want. I'm gonna make a new layer, shift in. We're gonna call this one the detail layer if I can pull up my name. Okay, details. Just 1 second. Okay. Now that we have the, what is it called? Kind of like the general outline, I want to work on the details, and I'm going to use a different color just so that, you know, I can at least tell. I probably don't want to use any of the colors I'm going to use for him, so we're going to use, like, let's do an orange. And we're going to make sure the line layer is locked so that I'm not accidentally drawing over it. And we're just going to fill in his, like, scales patterns, and it'll make sense. One thing that you don't have to worry too much about pixel art, you can even do this all on one layer because all the pixels, as long as you have a limited number of them, you can quickly make changes and adjustments to it by filling it in. And I want to talk about how you can do that when we get to that point. And it's really cool because you get to essentially, like, the colors themselves are like a layer. And so if you don't like a particular color that you use, and that will happen as I'm working, sometimes I realize, oh, this is not the color that I was expecting. You can make fast adjustments to the colors that it's just a lot of fun. There is like programs that are like that allow you to do this without having to do it in pixel art, but I mean, it's just one of the advantages of working with limited colors. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to do two things at once is quite the experience. I can usually go much faster than this just because I'm not, you know, talking. But it's called Illustrator. It's basically like kind of like a vector program that allows you to do a lot of similar things as sprite art. But I like the simplicity that comes with it, and you don't need like a fancy program to make it work. I know this, I said this is a tutorial, but this is also just how I make it. So if anyone wants to, like, you know, follow along and figure out how I did something, you know, this is going to be for you. It's a little hard to see the orange. So that's what I was talking about, is like, oh, you know, I thought orange would be a good color, but it's actually getting kind of hard. So I can hit edit and go to adjustments. It's Hue and saturations, Control U. I actually use that shortcut. And what I can do is I can slide the hue slider. This just changes the color that I'm using. And you kind of look for a color that works well. You know, I think I want that purple. Oops, did not mean it. Do that. So hit Control U, pull up purple, and hit OK. That will save it. Now we want to make sure we're using that color, so holding Alt to use the color picker tool. And then it looks like okay, we got that. And then we got this horn here that I want a little bit of detail on. I personally love drawing dragons. I think they are really cool, and I've been trying to improve my ability to render them. I really wanted to update my profile picture, which I mean, it's not bad. It's just I think I gotten a little bit better at drawing pixel art that um, when I first made it, it was, you know, my earliest attempts at making it. Looks like I need to add some lines here, here, and right there. Got some texture here as well. This is just so that you can kind of tell what's going on. And I know that like pixel art, you lose a lot of details, but you still kind of need to know where your light is going to fall, where your shadows are going to be. And I'll talk about how to render those when we get to that point. But right now, we're just going to, you know, do the best we can with it. And, you know, if you feel that your sketch isn't up to your standard, it's okay to ignore parts of it. It's just usually if you have an idea of what you want your art to look like, you generally want to stick with it. But I totally get if that's not what you want. I'm going to go ahead and erase that line right there. You can press E, pick up the color, and just kind of do that. Looks like I still have some details that I want to touch. Oh, looks like this line needs to come through. Yeah, so sometimes even after everything that I did, I can't always see the lines. Get that all up there. When working with scales for a dragon, especially in this style of art, is that you don't want like tiny pixels. You want nice, well-defined lines. Sorry, I'm like trying to get my thoughts here. And so I purposely make the scales bigger because it's easier to work with that. And that's something that my advice to you, if you want to have details or give it the appearance of details, if something's too tiny, feel like, you know, push it, make it bigger. If you're dealing with like a furry creature, um, exaggerate the fur tufts. You know, fur usually is really fine and doesn't really stick out, and so just exaggerate that and it'll be much easier to just work with. And that's kind of what I'm doing with these scales here, is that you know, I'm making them nice and big, and it usually works out in my favor. So I think at this point I don't really need the sketch, and I'm just gonna make some small adjustments because, you know, I couldn't always see what I was doing. Not really happy with that line, or this line for that matter. And it's because, like, I'm trying to imagine it in 3D, so I still want, like, something there. I think that'll work. And then... I'm gonna actually do that. Go ahead and erase that. I'm gonna erase this. And just kind of like fix it up a bit. Yeah. And then for the details, well, I think that'll be fine. We definitely want, there's a line missing here. There we go. It's kind of weird because this makes it look like it's the ear kind of here, but it's not. This is the horn behind a spike. I just have too many spikes on my my dragon. So what I'm gonna do now, now that I have my lines, this is kind of like my first like stylized thing. I'm gonna make a new layer, shift in. We're gonna call this. I can never double click that. We're gonna call this line thickness. And what I'm going to just simply do, I got my brush, I have it, I'm going to just simply draw over my line. And I'm not going to worry too much about it, because what this is going to do is it's going to give it the illusion that, kind of giving it like a bigger thickness. I'm going to turn off details because it's kind of getting in the way. I'm going to mostly focus on the outline and just kind of like add in some pixels. And I think this step is really cool because like I'm just like painting it in with no regard to jaggies, because I'm actually okay with the pixels being a little thicker. Pull that up. And just kind of like go over it. You can kind of see what it is in the preview. I'm gonna see if I can zoom this out a bit. Just looks so weird without his details. And this is something that I think personally is like something that kind of like recognizes my own like art, because I don't really know a whole lot of people that do it in this particular style. And I'm gonna just like put it in on the spikes here. So once you get this all figured out, like the lines, what I usually do next is I start coloring it in. Because, I mean, it's kind of what you do with this kind of stuff. And coloring in is really easy in pixel art. It's harder with an Illustrator program because you have to deal with that anti-aliasing as I was talking about. There is tricks to speed that up, but what I find kind of annoying with all that is that it really slows down my ability to just work on art. Because having to clean up art when it should just be like, I want this, shape to have this color. And I think that's one benefit of working in a program like Illustrator, is that usually that is already taken care of for you. And I'm gonna just kind of thicken the eye here. Okay, turn on the details. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna turn off my other lines. And we're gonna just go ahead and give this a kind of like a gray color, just so it's not distracting. So up here, there's tools. So tolerance is what I was talking about. If you wanted to color in similar colors, the higher the tolerance, the more colors that it will consider the same colors you poke. Contagious, I hope I said that right, but what this is that if you were to color something with this setting on, it's only going to color in the area of the pixels. Now, there's some settings over here. When you click this up, you can have it stop at a grid, which if I were to turn the grid on, it would stop at the grid. You can refer it to active layers. So you know how I'm talking about layers over here. You can have it automatically do that so that I don't have to turn off all the layers. Refer to visible layers. Basically, everything that you see on the screen, it's going to treat all the colors the same. Down here, 4 pixel connected and 8 pixel connected, this can be really useful, so let me just go ahead and show what 8 pixels. So I had it 4 previously. If I do 8, it's going to color everything that is touching, which, okay, that's kind of nice. But I prefer to keep it 4. It's better that way. But what I was talking about with Contagious, if you have this off and I click any color, all the colors on this canvas will change to that color. And this is something that I really like about using pixel art like this. So we got this, and I know for the fact that my lines are not the same color. So I have all visible layers on, but it should only target the details that I have. Okay. Let's turn back on my light layer. Alright, so I think we're ready to actually start coloring this in. So I'm going to turn off the details because I don't need it. His main body, we need to make a new layer. Always a new layer. Don't be afraid to use too many layers. This program is not that intense on the memory. We'll just call this colors. So make sure Contagious is on, make sure that Refer to Visible Layers is on, and you can color it in. Nice and easy. Might have to press B and fill it in manually. Now that's his horn, this is horn. Now, for me personally, he's the kind of dragon that has a lower jaw like that. I believe this is his... No, that's not it. I know these are his spikes. And then this is his eyebrow color. Line layer. Got some weird looking pixels. Alright. His horns. Kind of makes everything darker, doesn't it? Oh, I'm coloring on the wrong layer. That's okay. Just make sure that the colors are separated. It's not a big deal. His eye socket, I think, is this color. I'm pretty sure it is. Let me double check. I know it's not the most interesting thing for me to do, but I want to make sure that I'm getting his colors right. Characters, there we go. No, that is definitely what he usually has. I think what I'm going to do, because I don't really like... oh, because I'm coloring everything. So I'm going to go ahead and just like mash all three of these together. I'm pretty happy with it. I click and drag down to select all of these, or you can click and shift. We're going to flatten this, and it will take all those layers and put them all into one layer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my brush, set it to black, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to make this like skin color. And then his eye, I know for a fact that it is pitch black right here. Okay. His eye color is this. And then for the background, I mean, I personally like purple. You know what? I'm actually going to fill this in on the background layer. Does Alt backspace? Nope, it does not. So, hit Alt, fill that in, and turn them back on. Okay. So now I can kind of see this. I do not like the colors for his details, and I did not flatten the layer. Let's go ahead and... I mean, that works for the top. We're going to have to work on this. Yeah, we'll just do a slightly lighter color, and we'll adjust it as we go. So it's going to look kinda, I don't want to say crusty, but like amateurish. Not really the most interesting thing. Make sure I'm on the flatten color layer. When I fill it in, make sure Contagious is on. So we got our dragon kind of looking character here. I think for the inside of this, so this is the first thing that we want to do is I'm going to hit Q, which is the lasso tool here. Now, we haven't talked about this tool just yet, but I know I will. You can select areas, and I'm just trying to get the colors just in here. And I think what I want is I want a darker color. I guess I'll have to go up to the details. Make sure Contagious is off. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and pick the color from his cheek and just kind of make it lighter like that. So you can still see his scale details. In fact, what I might do, since I don't really want black to outline this, I'm going to go ahead and take that and I'm going to use that same color and just fill that in. Kind of let the color take control versus me trying to use a nice strong black line, because these lines they're pretty strong. In fact, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and fill in this with this dark blue. Maybe a little bit darker than that, because I still want to be able to work with these lines. So I go ahead and I fill in the lines. I'm pretty sure they shouldn't be pitch black anymore. Alright, so now that I gotten... I want to fix this up just a little bit. I think I can actually merge the details down. Or, you know, let's just make a new layer. And then I just adjust it like this. And put this up here. And I guess from this point, from here, I'm going to be just making small changes. Actually, I think these are already a different color. Let's do that. And then I can just, I'm just using that lasso tool and just coloring like so. So I'm just making these small adjustments to the details. Oh, I don't want the same color as that, but I do want a lighter color. And since I already know that these are all the same color, if I make this lighter and I click this, it should affect all of them. Fill those holes in. Okay, so that was fairly straightforward. Now this comes the hard part, which is me trying to render the lighting on this. I'm going to go ahead and clean that up. Now let's give them some teeth. Don't use pure white for teeth. Get a little bit lower than that. Because if you want to add highlights and shadows, you want that. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and flatten all of this. I don't really need separate layers for all of this. I can really just work with one layer if I really wanted to. Just kind of look for anything that looks kind of like weird or out of place, because sometimes the drawing process isn't always as clean. I'm actually going to make his eye just a little bit bigger. And if you want to put in a little highlight here to really drive the point home that it's an eye, you can do that. Okay, so this should all be one object. I did not merge the background with the character, and that's really helpful because when I duplicate, I make an exact copy of this. So here's a copy, here's a copy. And the reason why I did that is that what I can do is I can take W. W is the color magic wand, which is going to pick everything that's the same color. And I'm going to pick specifically the background, and I'm going to click around it. I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I. This is the inverse. It's under Select, Inverse right here. So I have this thing selected around it. I guess technically I didn't have to do it on here. I'm going to go ahead and just make a new layer. I'm going to hide all copies of it. Now I should have this outline, And I'm going to go ahead and just fill it in with a dark, a dark blue is fine. We're going to double click on this layer. We're going to name this the shadows. We want to change the mode to multiply because this will bring down the pixel colors from whatever color it is closer to this blue. Not quite. And I'm going to leave it on maximum for now. And we just turn on the background. So this is all like really dark and shaded, and that's fine. I'm going to take my eraser tool. And one thing I didn't really talk about yet is changing the cursor size. You can use plus and minus. There's also an option up here to change the pixel size. And so as I make it bigger, it's going to make the tool bigger. And I'm just going to paint wherever the light is by erasing this shadowed color. And I find that this is actually easier than trying to paint shadows because shadows are actually much more dominant in a lot of cases. And you can even use the, well, you can use, what do you call it? The paint bucket tool if you know exactly what colors you want to use. Now, so I know that I use this color to shade it in, so if I need to like paint stuff back in, I can. Now, don't worry that, like, this seems really dark. I know it's really dark, but I want to be able to see what I'm drawing. And just kind of like imagine where this light is landing. We can even just like put some right here, put some right here. And if you feel comfortable with the colors you might have gotten, you can go ahead, double click the shadow layer again, and turn down the opacity. Don't have to make it too strong. I feel like that's a good one. Now, do not, I strongly recommend keeping the shadow layer to its own layer for as much as possible. Because, like, you still want to, oh, what do you call it? There might be adjustments that you might need to do. So, with shadows, we got this kind of nice thing, and since I know exactly what color I used for it, I can always go back, and then I can, like, if there's something that's kind of weird, I think I'm actually going to go ahead and have the most of the cheek in shadow. Because I can actually add a second shadow. In fact, I want a second shadow now that I think about it. Still want that cheek to be there, but like, if it'll let me. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and erase that. And maybe just kind of like expand this out just a bit. And then set it back down to there. So I'll make a new layer. we're going to hit Alt-I on this, and I'm actually going to erase some of these floating pixels. This is my shadowy shadow. We're going to use that W again. We're going to turn contagious off, and we're going to do that. And just like for this layer, I'm going to hit Alt-I. Why is it? I'm going to have to turn everything back on manually. I don't know why it does that. Anyways, I don't want the sketch on. And we're going to hit Alt-click on this, and we're going to fill it in with the same shadow color. So these are going to be, you know what, let's do a shadow highlights. And you know, I'm trying to think, do I want darker shadows first? Yeah, let's just do, I'm going to call this one Deep Shadow. And so we'll turn everything back on. And we're going to also set this to multiply. So this one, I'm going to hit escape to exit out of the selection tool. I guess like erase anywhere that isn't supposed to be like super dark. I think the back here is fine. Oops. Just kind of like look for anywhere that probably doesn't need a really dark shadow. These are like your ambient occlusion kind of thing. I'm actually gonna go ahead and do this, and it's just like stuff like this, like trying to think of, you know, where would the darkest shadows be on this character. And then this one, we want, you know, same thing. Shadows are kind of strong here. I might have to manually paint the eye. Looks like there's some weirdness going on here. Okay. So we got, you know, the deep shadow. Kind of adding some more detail and variety to this. Let's go ahead, since we've added multiple shadows here, let's now start working towards adding a highlight. So we'll call this highlight. And for this one, there's a couple color modes that we can use. I know I've mentioned lighten, but I think I prefer to use overlay for this because it's a little bit softer. Doesn't exactly pull colors directly up. And we're gonna actually use a kind of like a yellowish white. We're gonna go like right there. And just like before, let's just use W to pull everything up, and then hit Control-Shift-I to get it only on the character, and then just like paint anywhere where the highlight might fall. I probably want a smaller one. Now, you don't need a lot of highlight. Just anywhere you think that, can bring out a brighter light. I'm actually going to go ahead and kind of just focus on like planes. Maybe a little bit right here. I personally like putting it on the horns. Now, I think the horns might want a pure white. Might have to do something to lighten that up just a little bit more. That seems a little excessive. And I think there's something weird going on with... There we go. Yeah, there's like a couple of weird... just like stray pixels. I'm not really a fan of this particular color. I need to figure out which one's causing this. It's the shadows. Why won't you let me? It's locked for some reason. Okay. And then I think this highlight might be messing things up. Shadow. No, wrong shadow. And then I think there's a highlight in here. Yep. Okay. And so with the highlight, I'm actually going to bump this also down. I don't need it that muted. So now it's starting to kind of take some shape. I'm going to go to flatten. I'm going to turn off all my... I don't know why I have two copies of my flattened color. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this layer. Turn off my shadows and highlights. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, no, okay. Pick this up. Just kind of fix up my details here. So now that I kind of have my general colors, this is where I start kind of having to do things manually, actually go in really detailed and thinking about what I'm doing with all my colors. So I'm gonna make a new layer. This one's gonna be I just call this the painted layer because I'm gonna be painting over everything, but I don't want to lose any of my other stuff, so I'm going to go ahead and lock the rest of them. And this is where I just kind of like personally just like add in colors and details. It's really helpful to have a lighting reference for this because guessing where these colors are, you will never quite get the lighting right until you like actually look at how things are lit up correctly. And it's something that I personally like don't do enough of. And this one I kind of have to like almost like pick the colors myself just so that I get the effect that I'm looking for. And it's not a perfect process. This part I always like not 100% sure what I'm going to do or how it's even going to turn out. And that's okay. Oh, that's weird. Why did I do that? You just kind of have to like do the best you can and work with what you have. Now, there is always like just a little bit of like light that always seems to like make it onto it. Maybe this is a little too strong, so what I can do, nope, hit escape, hit Q, and then I think this is a good color to work with. Turn off contagious and fill those in. I don't like that. I need to be unselected. I think I need to start working on this, like, more shadows. Just, like, put it in there. Kind of give it the depth that these scales should have. And then I think I can even, like... Nope. I need to have contagious on. That might be too strong. I think this highlight might be really overwhelming. Yeah, that's better. It's easier for me to work from a darker color. And make sure to like pull out and look at your painting. Don't get like too caught up in the details. You need to actually like see how your colors are affecting each other and how your whole painting looks like every so often, or else you're going to make mistakes. And there's not really anything you can't fix in pixel art because it's a painting. But it is something that I think about from time to time. And you know what, just add like a little bit of variety to it, you know? Don't always like try to make everything so uniformed and the same. It looks like I need better like color shapes. Now, I do know how to use the gradient tool. It's actually a really cool one to use. because you can do some really neat stuff with the gradient tool, but I don't know if I'm going to use it for this character. I might. It's open. Okay, that's making it weird. Honestly, this like highlight's kind of weird too. It's making his like nose appear very blue or light blue. I'll worry about that later. Let's work down here. I'm gonna go ahead and actually, I kind of want it to be more like, no, that's not gonna work. Okay, so we're just gonna focus a little bit. You know, I might not do anything too dramatic with the face here. Guess a little bit of a shadow doesn't hurt. I do want still some like highlights that like to work on the form a bit. I do want to bring emphasis to the scales here. Also, I kind of like the dark. Use this lighter color if I can. Yeah, just kind of bring more of that depth in. Well, that's all I'm doing. I'm just painting in light. You know, does this work well for this shape? And there's nothing to worry here because I made a new layer, and if I don't like it, I can always erase and try again. I know this was kind of supposed to be like the scaled, kind of like that crack between scales. But I think this works better as like the highlight, I think. And then same thing here, we want a slightly darker thing. This is dark scales to give him his skull-like look. And you don't really have to worry too much on making sure everything's perfect, because again, we're working with a painting. Actually, it's easier than a painting sometimes. You can like go ahead and color in all of it at the same time. If there's something that feels kind of like out of place, you can always like go in and adjust those colors. And I strongly recommend doing that. Can I like do that? Will this work? Yeah, it looks nice. And I'm picking colors that I've already have because I'm trying to keep the amount of pixels that I've used to a minimum. That's not going to be the case here. There's actually a lot of pixel colors going on because of the shadows and the highlights and things, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with having a bit of variety. You just kind of have to, like, trust that the process is going to work in your favor, you know? I know it's a lot of work, but, I mean, nothing in life that is, you know, there's no such thing as, like, easy art. And this kind of dips into the whole AI thing, is that, yes, you can copy somebody else's art style, and you can attempt to, um, mimic someone's hard work and labor, but the thing is that that person still can draw really well, and whatever models that they're using, and you wouldn't have that AI if they didn't have their art available for you to use to basically rip and put into the model. And the thing is, AI cannot make new things. It can only create the things that it has studied. I don't know what I'm doing with the ear here. It's called, like, messy. And so, if you're, I don't know why I'm even talking about AI for. Jeez. I guess it's just been on my mind, because the thing that I'm most worried about with AI is actually just the amount of spam that's going to be coming our way because of it. But the other thing is that, like, I created this art style, basically, and there's not really any AI that's going to be able to get anything that I want, and even if it could, it's just my own work. I'm still going to have to create the stuff anyways, at the end of the day. Like, is that really all that impressive if I have to make the work myself? And sure, it might shortcut things, but I don't know. Probably not something I should even be talking about in a tutorial video. It's also, like, super unethical and, you know, not something that I really appreciate having to worry about. Basically, change my ideas of even pursuing art as a career because of it. So, I do this now for fun, and I think that is the most important thing that I can really tell people, is that, do art because you want to, not because you want to do it for a job, because making anything into a job is going to kill the joy and happiness out of it. I think I might want this just a little bit darker. Yeah. Look at this. I mean, he's getting nice and lumpy, and that's kind of what I want. Uh, One thing with colors, and what I'm trying to do, is I want to make sure that you can clearly tell, this light shape from this shape. I'm making color shapes here. And the more contrast you put between it, and contrast is just simply like, if you were to squint your eyes right now, you should only see the contrast. You can still see the colors, but, like, it makes it easier to tell what shapes are there. Actually, I kind of do want that there. See, I like the texture here, but then when I get up here, I feel like the colors are really wrong. I'm gonna see if I can adjust it. That's green. That's weird. Don't like that either. I'm gonna figure this out. Yeah, a little bit more subtle. Okay, you know how I was talking about how I want the teeth to not be pure white? Well, my shadow's basically demolished that, and so now I need to kind of go in and add some highlight to the teeth, like his things. We need a nice dark tooth, just to kind of bring out that depth to it. And it looks like I need to like bring more emphasis to the mouth, so I'm gonna go ahead, just manually poke these in. Because I love, and this is kind of what anti-aliasing does, is that it gets a color that's close, because the anti-aliasing line is like creating very dark, let me see. Anti-aliasing is a transparent color that goes over things, and it gives you the illusion that it's softer. Oh, this is coming out really well. Hello, is this working? Sorry, I had to take a small break. Had a phone call from my dad, and he had some very personal things to talk to me. And then after that, I actually had an email from my professor telling me of classes that I needed to sign up for this coming semester. I only had a few days to get it all figured out, but I'm all set for the university this semester. It's quite a miracle, actually. I don't know how I managed to pull off getting registered for school all right before, like, I started the process about a month and a half ago, and that's just absolutely nutty. I don't recommend it at all. Anyways, I'm trying to get back into what I was doing. So, I'm looking at this. I really love how this cheek texture came out. It's a little bit plain on these sides, maybe not so much. The back needs work, the neck needs to be worked on, and obviously the horns. But this is... I'm actually really stunned just how much I was able to do up until this point. So I'm gonna keep just like working at it, and that's really, this is where the magic happens, as I like to call it. Like, there's not really too much of a plan. You know, I know that light comes in from the top left and shadows are underneath, but it's more about like trying to make the textures feel like they belong. And so you kind of have to play with it just a little bit. You know, I could probably like get away with putting a little bit of highlights right there. Nah, that's too bright. One thing I remember is shadows will never be lighter than the light side. So, like these colors right here, and it's something that you can do if you want to check your color values, is you make a new layer. I don't know why it's not letting me do it. You fill it with color, I guess any color will do, but I use black, and then I hit this color setting. Now what this will do is it will instead turn it into a grayscale painting, and you'll be able to more clearly tell, at least according to the computer, which is the light colors and which is the dark colors. And so my cheek over here is not directly in the light, so none of these colors should be brighter than the darkest colors here. And so the darkest colors here, I think are these, but it's okay because these are kind of like ambient occlusion, whereas these ones are kind of like the shadow color. So this color is probably the same color as this. Let me like... No, actually this is darker. These colors are darker, which is good. And then this color is the same color as this. Okay. And then this color is actually darker than all of them. But yeah, that's something that's actually pretty important, is that you don't want your shadows to be darker or lighter than the light side, because you're going to be painting in colors in here as well. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and turn off this layer right here, go back to our painting layer. Looks like I accidentally turned on my sketch. I don't think I really need my sketch anymore. I did save it, so I wouldn't be missing anything. I'm just going to turn it off, though. Okay, so let's see. I'll have to figure out what I want to do with this. This feels still kind of not... I think it just needs a little bit more light. Just make sure I'm in the right color layer. I'm going to hide that. Let's see like what happens when adding just like a slight lighter color. And put this right here. Maybe like a little bit right there. Nah, that doesn't really work. Yeah, I think that works out nicely. So we get this our lighter color. Now, if only I can like paint like this all the time with all my other, what do you call it? I'm going to add a little bit of shadow here because this horn is blocking the light. I'm really good at drawing like dragons like this, or specifically this dragon, but like when I try to draw other things, I start to kind of lose a little bit of my quality. Let's brighten this up. Put that in there. The nice thing about pixel art that I will say is that you can pretty much look at any pixel art and know exactly the colors they use. And if you follow like them, how they do it, you can get some really nice results. And it's okay to use references for this. The only reason why I don't really use one right now is that I'm very familiar with this dragon, and I mean, I'm making this as a tutorial, but the other thing is that like I like how he's coming out. So let's see, I kind of want a brighter color than this, just so that I can get his horns like appearing much more consistent. Also, at this stage, you really want to make sure you zoom out and like really think about how it comes out. Like, take a look at this like preview. It's very easy to paint things not necessarily wrong, but like missing the point. And this horn right here, I think I can actually put it underneath this, and then I probably want a dark color to separate. Like, that's as dark as I can make it. And I'm purposely using like a really bright color because it's shiny, just so that I can really bring out the looks of this horn. Oh, this is coming out really well. I love this. I know that the colors might be a little... You know, I think the colors are fine. We'll see how this all turns out. Now, I want it to be contagious. Look at that. It's so good. Okay, this color right here, I want just a little bit lighter. I'm going to turn off contagious. Kind of just pop that out a bit. And then this one, bring that up. Yep, cool. These scales are bugging me. So we can use all the colors we have over here. I'm going to use this color. Oh, okay, so the dark one right here. And just kind of like did what we did. Oh, no. This dark... I think I actually went with a darker color here, so... Turn that off. Let's see what happens when I use this. Huh. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Oh, don't want to color all that like that. Might need to add some darker colors here, so let's go ahead and put them in. Oh, that is the dark color, huh. I think this color right here might be... Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I just kind of have to... paint these colors in. What I'm doing here is what do you call it? I'm treating the texture like a 3D object. I know that it has depth and width, and these are just really tiny, you know, just round objects. I'm trying to focus on trying to preserve that light and how the light wraps around an object. It's something that you kind of have to like learn on your own. It's not something I can really teach. You can look how other people draw things, and that's something that I always recommend people doing is you pull out a reference and see how other people do it, and then you try to do it. That's why I keep constantly like redrawing the same head. It's because I want to practice, get better. And unfortunately, I can't really, like, teach this, you know? I can give pointers and, you know, say this is what you need to do to consider, but there's just things that, like, just come from experience, and as you try it, and I highly recommend, you know, if you want to be serious at learning art and pixel art, is just to spend a little bit of each day, try to see what works. And if it doesn't work out the way you intended, it's not a failure. I think A lot of people think that just because you don't draw as good as other people that, you know, that they can't try again. Every time you open up a canvas, you get a new opportunity to try again. I'm gonna just bump up the darkness down here. Just kind of bring out his chin. Yeah, nice thick lines. Love these. Yeah, put it back there. I'm gonna put just like a dark shadow right there. Just kind of like put some emphasis. In fact, I can even like do this. Nah, that's too much for that part anyways. I'm gonna put just a little bit more line there because I want to help separate it from the background that eventually I'll have to add. Oh geez, I didn't add a background. I never think that far ahead. I probably won't need one. I like having thick black lines. I don't know what it is. It just makes me happy to see them. And it's not like they're necessarily like adding anything to the drawing that would make it better. I could have kept the lines as is. I think it helps like pop out the character. Maybe just a little bit more right here. Speaking of things that are not as detailed, is this guy right here's ear scales are not coming out, so we need to get that addressed right now. We want the shadow. The shadow is what gives some definition to it. The highlights also help tremendously. You just kind of go back and forth. And since it's a pixel, whatever it is, paint ink, I'm not super worried of like, you know, does this look perfect? Doesn't really matter. What I am going to do is with the ear, I want to like kind of emphasize, I should probably fix up this line a bit. See? Nice and easy. We can pull it slightly to the right and pull it up. Just don't want too much. And you can like... Oh, that might be too much. Okay, so you pull a little bit to the right, pull it up lighter. And so what this will do is it will kind of give a warmer color. It still kind of is blue. And what I probably want to do, I just pull a little bit more to the right. And I just want to like kind of give the illusion that it's being passed through. Because if you look at ears in the sunlight, you know, it's passing through all those blood veins and stuff. It can go a little bit further. This might be too much, so I'm going to just bring down the... like that. Yep, that's good. And so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to like kind of bring in that warmth that's coming through the ear. And we can like even bring this down a bit. Pull this back a bit so that I guess we can actually just like pull just a tiny bit. That color, you can't see it. That one's good enough. Just kind of like cool that off a bit. And then that way we got this kind of cool glowing ear effect. We can even kind of do that here. We'll again pull it towards the warm color, maybe a little lighter, like that. And so that kind of helps it to do it, because shadows actually still emit light. Something that I learned recently is that shadows are just, it still reflects the world around it. So it's the ambient light that can still hit an object. And it's not pitch black. It's not even a color. It's, well, okay, it is a color, but it's the color of the environment being reflected off of the character. So, like this color right here, I kind of going to be aiming for more warmer. And if I put this in here, it may not seem like a whole lot, but I'm adding, you know, just that little bit. In fact, I think there'll be an easier way to do this. Let's pull up our layers. We'll make a new one. Yeah, I'm just going to keep adding layers here. We're going to do an overlay layer, and we'll just call this warm shadows. And we just sort of just paint. That's not the color I want. We can kind of make it brighter. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. So you can like add in colors. And I always like doing this kind of stuff. Maybe some in here. You know, we'll go ahead and just like fill it in like that. Probably like that. Just like bring it up here. Put some right there. The horns, definitely want a warm shadow in there. And here. So what we do now is we pull up the hue saturation by hitting Control U, and we can kind of like adjust the colors. I kind of want it more red. Do I want it lighter or darker? Let's do a little darker and hit OK. And then we change the opacity on this and just kind of bring it down. You don't want it too light, but you want to be able to still see the colors. So we'll do that, and that looks good. And I'm going to go ahead and just flatten this. Put it on a... Oh, nope. That's not going to work. Merge down. Nope. Make a new layer. Let's see if I can merge this. No, that's so weird. Okay. How do I do this? There's a way to do it. Do I have to, like, flatten all this? Weird. Okay, just leave that there. We'll just paint on top of it. So this is just going to be our painting 2 layer. I wonder if I can, like, merge all of this. Yeah, okay, so I didn't lose that. We got our new painting layer. Now, you don't have to merge it. I just like being efficient, and because I know pixel art is very easy to clean up, I'm actually okay with, like, merging things. Like, I'm not going to change a lot of these colors. Looks like some of these colors got introduced in places they shouldn't. That's okay. Honestly, it's fine to have a little bit of color mixing. It adds to the beauty of it. I think right here, though, I'm going to cool it off a bit and have kind of like a darker shadow here. Now, I think this pink might be just a little overwhelming, so I'm just going to cool it off a bit. Yeah, we'll go ahead and make all of this like that. And then this color will also pull over and like that. Looks like color got painted there. Oh, it's from the warm shadows. The ones that I can't really seem to change. Oh well. Fix these lines up. Let's actually see if I can add a little bit more highlights to this. Yeah, just kind of pop it out a bit more. The only thing that I have a problem with is this like plating that I have for the skin here. Well, let's see what happens when I use a lighter color. That's a little bit much. Oh, we have the shadow color here, so let's maybe pull it up a bit. We'll figure this out. Yeah, let's do a subtle gray here. Sometimes I overdo the saturation of my colors, and like no joke, I don't know what I'm doing half the time. This color, I think we can use this. Yeah, it's giving it more of a scaly look. And I think we can do like that, put some of that white there. And then this, just a tiny bit. Yeah, like that. Oh yeah, that's nice. I still feel like that's a little too strong. What about this color? No, what about this color? Closer. Oh yeah, we'll go with this. It might still be too strong. I want to push it just a slight amount, but I don't want it so hard that it like changes how it looks. That seems really strong. Yeah, this thing's kind of bugging me. Kind of put some anti-aliasing with this like kind of subtle shadow. Yeah, it works. Put that dark shadow in. And since I made this texture here for this, it actually translates pretty well over here. You want to keep your colors consistent, you know? And we can even, like, you know, I'm just going to stick with this. I know that there's, like, other ways to do this. Let's see. This one, I think we can do just a slightly lighter color. Yeah. And then this one can actually be made just slightly lighter, just like in these parts. Just to kind of keep the light consistent. I realize I probably should have had music maybe playing during this time, but I feel like you can pretty much choose whatever music, just play another song in the background or something. And I hope my commentary is interesting enough. I bet some people are probably watching this at 2x speed or whatever. I know it's a couple hours long. That's not really working out. I'm gonna put this like purple here because I like it. I guess it's less of a tutorial, more of Skull draws a cool looking dragon. Yeah, I mean, this is looking pretty good so far. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna go ahead and continue this on my own, because there really isn't anything more that I'm really hitting on other than I'm just gonna make some adjustments. The background's probably gonna follow the same principles. I start with a sketch of some kind and throw colors in, see what sticks and what doesn't. Since this is a profile icon, I'm not super worried about the background. In fact, I might just figure something that, what do you call it? I might even just have like a clear background just so that I don't distract from the picture itself. And I'll probably make some adjustments to the colors as well. But for the most part, this is looking really solid. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching.